of the great things about this weekend in this hall is reliving memories of our best players and the things we saw them do. And it's easy to forget that long before we saw them make our country proud, there was someone else who saw them first. Someone whose reward for spending half the year in motels, nights in chilly parks, and days in broiling stands was maybe, just maybe, the start of something very special. That someone was a scout. They've been called the backbone of the game, but in reality they are its beating heart, its soul, its conscience, its blood. They miss birthdays, first days of school, anniversaries, Mother's Day. They miss it all so they can get something no one else has, the potential, the promise in a player who just might be able to play. No one saw more, no one found more, no one was a friend and supporter to more Canadian players than Jim Ridley, who today we welcome into the Hall of Fame. His memory represented here by his children, Jeremy, Shane, and Shannon, and their mother, Penny. Jim's life in professional baseball began when he was signed by the Milwaukee Braves in 1963, after a couple of years in their system where he played with an up-and-coming young player named Cito Gaston. Jim returned home to play with Stratford and Toronto of the Intercounty League. It was there that he got his introduction into the world of scouting. A part-time job with the Tigers led to a bigger role with the Blue Jays. By 1976, he was running their first tryout camp, which was the start of a 26-year career with the organization. Across the country and back again and again and again and again. For many, Jim was the face of the Toronto Blue Jays. As a scout and as a coach, he was a committed advocate for Canadians as players and as people. In 2002, he joined the Minnesota Twins, where he remained until his passing in November 2008. Yet even with all these responsibilities, Jim found time to coach Team Canada's national junior team from 1983 to 1988, manage Team Canada at the 1988 Olympic Games in Seoul and the 1991 Pan Am Games in Mexico, coach Canada in the 1989 Pacific Cup, the 1989 World Student Games, and the 1989 Worlds, and of course lend his experience to minor baseball, which he loves so much, for several championship seasons. It's no wonder that the Canadian Baseball Network's recognition of Canada's top scout is now called the Jim Ridley Award. And it's safe to say that every Canadian player, past, present, and future, owes him a debt of gratitude. I'm sure Paul Spaljaric knows well. Or better for him and better for Jim, a hustle on and off the field, every inning, every game. In an article a few years ago, Bob Elliott quoted Rich Butler, and he and both Rob, the Butler brothers, who have done so much for young amateur baseball players, and of course Rob played with the Blue Jays in the World Series in '93. Rich said, he had a presence. When Jim was there, you felt, I better work hard today. Today that presence is all around us, and it will never go away. Not for the generations of Canadian players, and not for anyone who admires the greatness enshrined in the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, as Jim Ridley will be right now. Representing Hall of Famer Jim Ridley, please welcome his son Shane and Jeremy, his daughter Shannon, and their mother Penny. Welcome to Canada's Baseball Hall of Fame.
Good afternoon. I'd like to start off by congratulating 2014 Hall of Fame inductees. Each one of you actually impacted our family and our lives throughout our baseball life. A very deserving honor to you all. Sitting here in front of Tim Wallach and seeing Pat Gillick here many times, my brother and I would put up mock trades to try to get Tim to come to the Blue Jays. So it wasn't our fault, Blue Jay fans. And we'd like to thank the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. You've opened up your arms, welcomed us, and treated us with the utmost kindness. It's been an honoring and enjoyable experience. Our father, he grew up as a Toronto kid playing all sports, as most Canadians do. He was, playing hockey, he played baseball, were the dominating choices. A lot of people wonder how baseball became the dominating sport. Well, the influence of his mother was a major contributing factor. She actually played hardball during the 30s and 40s in the women's league. Many of you in this room have met Vernon, would understand the driving force and why baseball was so passionate with my father. Jim Fanning, I had mentioned earlier, signed our father to the Milwaukee Braves in 1963. He was an outfielder with a right-handed bat. His playing career included minor league baseball, independent leagues with stops in Drummondville, Quebec, and Sherbrooke, and also many stops here locally in the inter-county leagues. He won MVPs and championships. He was a winner. It was soon after graduating Teachers College, he began scouting. Teaching and coaching quickly became a passion. It was this passion that allowed him to scout over 30 years, starting with Detroit, 26 years with Toronto, and 5 years with the Minnesota Twins. His love for the game and his love for Canada drove him to find the best talent this country had to offer. He once told me that he didn't trade his car in by the amount of miles or by how old it was, by how many ballparks he visited. You'd be hard-pressed to find another Canadian that has visited more Canadian ballparks than our father. He once drove me to Jack Couch Park in nearby Kitchener while I was playing for Toronto. It was a little rush for game time. For some reason, I mentioned for him to get over, you're going to miss the exit. He took his hands off the wheel and turned and looked at me and said, "You're telling me how to get to the ballpark." He did say this car could drive itself. How could I argue? His coaching career included the Medicine Hat Blue Jays and, of course, the junior and senior national teams. He coached in many world tournaments that included the '88 Olympics and the '91 Pan Am Games. Although Canada did not medal in the 1988 Olympics, he was able to defeat the eventual gold medal American team in round-robin play. Players like Robin Ventura, Jim Abbott, Ed Sprague, and Tino Martinez were on that team, the American team. A shining moment in Canadian baseball history, and he did it with his favorite ball players, Canadians. Rob Butler, Matt Stairs, here today, Bill Wykowski on that team, Ricky Johnson, Real Cormier, and Kitchener's own Randy Curran, to name a few. He loved to coach. As kids, we couldn't have had a cooler dad. I mean, he worked for the Blue Jays. I remember bragging about my dad at a summer basketball camp years ago. We were excited for him to be picking us up. We had bragged all week about our father and who he worked for. Well, to our surprise, Uncle Mike showed up. And Uncle Mike said, "Your dad is entertaining a prospect, Paul Spaljeric." You scarred me for life, Paulie. His impact on the game of baseball has been tremendous. He lived his life teaching Canada's youth to become better students and better baseball players. His value of education was always influenced on all players. Probably his greatest contribution was impacting young players to understand the importance of education. He was always known for his first question, how's school? If our father was here today, he'd be very honored and humbled to receive such a recognition. He's amongst the best this country's had to offer in the game of baseball. This is exactly where we feel he belongs. We've all heard of angels in the outfield. Well, I'm here to let you know there are angels in the stands with a clipboard and a radar gun. On behalf of my family, Shannon, Jeremy, our mother Penny, and 5 grandchildren, Bridget, David, my wife Karen, thank you for this amazing honor. Dad, well deserved. Thank you.